Jason, you became financially free at age 32. You've helped others to do the same. Can you share a bit of a pivotal experience that led you to that path?
I was born and grew up on an estate in South London. It was just me and my mum. My dad had left. I was looked after by a renowned gangster while she went off to work. It was just this massive epiphany that I had when I was just turning 14. I remember thinking, I know something these people don't. If it's leveraged the right way, it actually allows you to focus on more inspiring tasks, right? If you don't master delegation, you'll never be free.
Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual. Now, today we're diving into a topic that's really close to certainly my heart, but I think every business owner's heart, which is how do you get to do more of what you truly want to do? And so I'm thrilled to have Jason Graystone with us, a finance expert and multiple business owner who not only achieved financial freedom, but is passionate about helping others to do the same. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and you've got so much insight to give that it's almost difficult to pack in whatever we can. And so some of the questions that I've thought about and prepared are going to start in one place. We'll probably go down a different area and then I'll jump to somewhere completely differently to try and cover as much as we can. I want to start off with the fact that, Jason, you became financially free at age 32. You've helped others to do the same. Can you share a bit of a pivotal experience that kind of led you to that path?
Yeah. So I've always had a high value on money and wealth building for a security purpose. And I think that comes from when I was a baby, when I was born and grew up on an estate in South London. It was just me and my mum. My dad had left, and I had the upbringing of just me and my mum, no father figure until I was about 6, and someone came into our life, my stepdad. But we had that kind of no money, bailiffs knocking on the door, no electricity, all that kind of stuff. Moving from pillar to post just to follow my mum around to do various day jobs and things like that. And I was looked after by a renowned gangster while she went off to work sometimes. And I remember all these kind of environments just made me feel so uneasy a lot, to the point where I developed these weird little habits and tics and things like that as a kid. And I guess they say your character's developed by age 7, your beliefs and your deep-rooted thoughts and what you perceive to be missing in your life as well. They shape your values and the hierarchy of your priorities. And for me, I guess that was it. It was like I value money for security, or I value security to this day, where I don't like losing things. I really have a problem with losing things. It just kills me. But obviously I didn't know that money provided security. So I think what the turning point there was when I was about 13 years old. I was 13 going on 14, and I wanted this BMX for my 14th birthday, Mongoose Sniper. And it was an amazing bike. And what used to happen is on the estate, every Friday, there was these kind of congregation around the foot of my block with all the mothers meeting type thing, where they would just talk about the week and moan about money. That's all they used to do. And I remember picking up on it. And the reason I picked up on it is because every Friday at 7:30, after they'd been moaning about rich people are greedy and all this kind of stuff, that type of conversation, this guy called Roy used to come down, take everyone's money and go and do a syndicate lottery. And for the next 10 minutes, their face would light up talking about how amazing their life would be if they won and all this, what they would spend it on. And I remember thinking, I didn't have it all figured out, but I remember thinking, this is so weird, so weird. And combined with that kind of experience that I had there, I wanted this BMX, and my stepdad said, look, we can't afford it, but if you raise half, we'll pay half, go and raise half. And I was like, okay, there's £100 I need to raise. So I went down on the estate and started washing cars. I washed one car on day one. I charged £5 plus £2 tip I got from this lady called Lynn. And that night, my friend offered to ask the next day. I didn't really want to pay him anything. But anyway, my dad came in my room, my stepdad, and said, look, I'm going to the shop. Do you want anything? And for some reason, I gave him my entire day's earnings to get another bucket and sponge. And the next day, my friend helped and we washed 4 cars. And then within 2 weeks, I had 2 other friends helping. And I wasn't washing cars. I was just knocking on the doors and getting the money and making the sales. And it was like I'd discovered fire. It was like I'd been lifted up 60,000 feet, and I felt like I'd sussed out all of the problems of everyone on the estate. And I thought, money actually provides you security and peace of mind to do the things that you want to do. It's actually leveraged, if it's leveraged the right way, actually allows you to focus on more inspiring tasks, right? And accelerate your security and accelerate your wealth, and you get things quicker. And it was just this massive epiphany that I had when I was just turning 14. And I took that into the workforce. So to answer your question, I valued wealth building, value money, security, or I valued security. And then that event that took place when I was 14 linked the two. It was like, right, this is what I need, security. These people aren't happy with money because they're not using it the right way, or they haven't figured out how to use it properly in some way. And I didn't know what it was, but I remember thinking, I know something these people don't. Vividly remember that.
I love the way in which, for so many people, that story kind of starts and ends with, and so I started washing cars and I earned some pocket money and then used that to eventually buy the bike. Done, right?
Yeah.
And I love that in your case, the way that, as you said, that you essentially discovered fire when you had the opportunity to essentially bring on your first employee in your car washing business by giving them a bucket and sponge, and that your role became the sales role of building that. And so that you were able to grow a small business at the age of like 13 years old. And I can see that it totally would have given you so much insight into how you grow that. I know that's something, that lean approach to business, because essentially what we're talking about there is almost the leanest business you could have, right? Is you create the sales, and then you've got people who take the bucket and sponge and they wash the car, you collect the money, you're done. Can you perhaps share examples of other businesses that you've then gone on to create? Because I know that you did go beyond washing cars, and other businesses that you've created where you've adopted that lean model and that of very quickly going for the profits out of the business. Because I think that's something I've seen in a lot of your journey, is how you've done that.
Yeah. So there was a lot of lessons I've done a lot of reflection upon different, what it's like when you're in it, you don't really necessarily sit there and think about what you're doing. And that is a trap that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into. But since reflecting on everything since, the lessons that I've taken out of just literally that car wash, you think about the influence that you need to make on my friend to buy into this idea that if you help me, you'll be able to fill up your sticker book. And those kinds of conversations were taking place at 13 years old. And unknowingly, what I was doing is influencing a member of staff onto my vision and why, and how helping me get what I want will help them get what they want, which is an amazing alignment in any employment contract, right? Because everyone only goes to work for them. Everyone only goes to work for them. They don't go to work for you. They go to work to fulfill their highest values, right? So if you can help them see how by helping you get what you get, they're getting what they get, you end up with a very loyal team, which in turn is a very lean team because they're willing to do more. They're willing to do it better. And I'd rather pay a few people a lot than a lot of people a little. That's just my approach to business. But in terms of lean business, I remember thinking, I need to get this bike in 6 months. So I need to basically bootstrap this. I need to pay the team as little as they're willing to accept so that they can still feel like they're getting a good deal. I also need to make sure that we're providing a good service, because if we don't provide a good service, they don't get any more car washes, and it's word of mouth. I was looking to do this all summer, and every week, maybe every 2 weeks, we were washing the same cars. For that reason, although it was lean, you have to invest in kit. And I remember going, can we get a squeegee from Morrison's or Safeway or whatever it was back then, so we could squeegee the windows, just so we could say no other car wash people were doing the squeegee on the windows thing, right? So all these kind of weird little, I don't know, like synchronicities that I think about back then have had so much of an impact in my life. But the biggest lessons in terms of entrepreneurial thinking, which is something that I've passed on to my kids, is don't exchange time for money. Think about how you can get a result and charge, like dictate the price. So when my kids would ask me for something, like they wanted an Xbox or an Xbox game or whatever it was, or they want like some pocket money to put towards it, what I used to do is I would say, look, I'm not going to pay you £10, £15. I'll give you £100, but you've got to complete this job. And I would pick a job that I really didn't like, a really horrific job that I wouldn't want to do myself. And I would say, if you get it all done, I don't care how long it takes you. You can do it in 5 minutes or you can do it in a week, but it's got to be done properly, 100%. And if you don't do it 100%, you don't get a penny of the money, right? And what that made him do was he understood that there's people who've got bigger pains than they're willing to pay more money for bigger pains, the bigger the pain it is. Second of all, there's always a problem you can solve and get what you want from solving that problem. Third of all, you don't exchange time for money. It's results based. So you finish and you get paid on completion. And the next thing is getting other people on board with your mission. Like he would get his brother and he would say, look, if you help me rip up this carpet, I'll get the Xbox and I'll get another controller and you can play with me and all this kind of stuff, right? So I heard him have all these conversations. And I remember thinking, I thought back to when I did the car wash, it sounded like me when I was doing that. And I guess I'd unknowingly like push those values onto my kids. But it's lean. It's a lean way of doing business. It's a way of making sure that it's done quick, efficiently, to a high standard, and you get repeat business. That's basically what you want to be doing. So yeah, there's a lot of lessons in terms of business. The only other thing on lean is I wouldn't be too keen on going into physical service-based businesses personally these days, because I'm much more of a timeless, spaceless, digital business fan, because if it's online, it's very lean. You're not paying team and staff and necessarily, or you can keep it very lean that way. So yeah, big fan of lean businesses, but I'm also a fan of doing things that are not scalable to keep people really happy and then figuring out how to scale. I heard I've been doing that naturally since I've been in business. And I heard the guy who started Airbnb, his name escapes me, but he said that as well. He said, try and do things that are non-scalable and then figure out how to automate them and scale them later. And that was, that's a great piece of advice for anyone in business, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one of the challenges that I think or mistakes that a lot of business owners fall into is trying to scale stuff or do stuff that they can believe will scale too early. And as a result, I think it lends itself to not adding sufficient value, not really solving the problem, just going through the motions, and also not really learning how to do something really well, instead trying to learn how to do something efficient that can be efficient. And I've certainly fallen into that trap many times myself. But I think you're right. Starting off actually with do stuff that can't scale, and it often means that your competitors aren't doing it, which gives an advantage, and then work out how to scale it anyway. And I think you're right that actually you do work it out. And particularly now we've got AI and so on, that allows you to scale things that previously just weren't scalable in a way that you can. So I love
I think the mistake a lot of people make is they try and do all the funnels and the automations and everything straight away, or the market, like the marketing, like Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff. But what you do is you neglect the product, and the product's designed to get someone a result and change their life in some way, get them from A to B in some way. And that's the best marketing you can ever do, by actually getting someone a result, because other people like them will want the same result that they want, and it will just sell it. Then you can automate testimonials and case studies and referrals, and it's like perpetual. But the whole time you're focused on marketing, you're not focused on the product, and someone is out there building a much better product for you than you, and they're focused on getting someone a result. So eventually it's going to tip the scales, and you're going to have a half-assed product that you've sold thousands of through your ads, but you'll also have a lot of complaints and chargebacks and all the kind of customer support and all that. And that's not a lean way of doing business. I don't care what anyone says. If you have chargebacks and people have gotten a disappointment due to some unmet expectation, that's a big problem, because that's not scalable. And a lot of people that focus on, oh, look, I can tripwire and do the ads and all this kind of stuff, you're adding fuel to the fire. That's a dangerous place to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, as you say, sorting out that, essentially the customer success funnel, the post-sale part where you're actually delivering the value and focusing on that is so powerful. And there are various people that I've spoken to where they say, to some extent, getting traffic, getting eyeballs on what you do is easy once you've sorted out that downstream funnel. Once you're able to convert leads successfully, make them happy, turn them into raving fans that stay with you and do referrals, you can afford to spend a lot more on their front end, and marketing gets a lot easier.
Exactly. And a lot of the time, people focus on getting the client a great result or how can I make my business or product more remarkable, more amazing, or get a better result. But a lot of the time, they neglect the really easy, low-hanging fruits of removing things that people don't like about doing that particular service. And the example that I always give is like in the barber shop, right? Where, like, you have to go to the barbers, you have to get your hair cut, but there's always parts of the barber shop that you don't like the itchy neck, and maybe some of the music's too loud, or maybe they mouth off about their weekend and all this. So there's certain bits that someone might not like. When you have builders in your house, people don't like builders in the house because mud through the hall, privacy, using your toilet, or whatever it might be. If you can just identify some of the things that people hate about doing that service, and then just remove those as much as you can, it makes the whole service more delightful, but people don't actually know why. It's like when you go into a coffee shop and it's just amazing, and it's a nice smell, a nice temperature, a nice atmosphere, and you have the coffee, you're not really thinking about all those things. All you're thinking about is, I love this coffee shop. Where if you go into a coffee shop where the door's slamming and the wind's blowing through and it's all a bit loud music and all that, then you recognize why you love the other coffee shop so much. So it's like, it's trying to identify the things that people might be uncomfortable with along your journey process and removing those, not necessarily adding things that are going to make the product feel more amazing. Does that make sense? And it's 100%. It works amazingly well.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. As you say, it's tempting to look at the cherry on the top as what needs to add value, whereas, as you say, just removing the things that your customers hate is a really powerful way of adding value. There's a few ways we've come at this topic already, but I want to dig into looking at how a business owner spends their time. We talked about not trading time for money and the value of actually focus on the outcome and what you're going to deliver them. We also talked about how by making the right decisions over making sure that you're delivering a good service, you're getting repeat business and so on, rather than some of the marketing, that's a good use of business owner time. And also just there talking about actually there are ways in which you can improve your product and service that make it remarkable just by removing the painful things. What are some of the other kind of smart decisions that you feel business leaders should be making to better manage their time and as a result focus on the right things?
Yeah, there's a few that are going to have significant impact on your business. But the first one, I think, just based on who's listening to this podcast, is delegation. And I know everyone talks about delegation nowadays, but I believe that if you don't master delegation, you'll never be free. Even if you won the lottery tomorrow, right? Someone's still you cannot then go, oh, well, I'll just pay someone to book all my holidays. Well, you won't be able to because you haven't built a system for it, right? What do you like? Where do you like going? What's your preference on the lounge? Because you've never taken the time to delegate that stuff. So you'll never be free. Someone will always tell you how to manage your money or spend your money. And delegation is like one of the best skills that you can master. So in business, with the technology we've got these days, one of the best things you can do is get Loom. And every single process that you do in your company, just open Loom, press record, reply to an email, explain why you're replying this way, why you're typing this, why you're typing that. And you set a tone of voice, you set a standardized reply. You've trained someone once on how to do it and you never have to train them again. And then you prioritize. This is what I would do. I'd have every task on a video. Every task that you've ever done, that in itself frees up your mind so much. It's like everything's out on paper. I can find my login and access to things that I don't have to worry about anymore. I know how to do that renewal or that refund or whatever it is, right? And then you write down everything you love doing in the business and everything you're good at doing. And then you write down everything you hate doing and you're crap at doing. And then you prioritize, like put an hourly rate on what it would cost to replace those tasks that you hate doing first. And then just go and outsource and train them up using those videos, sacrifice a bit of profit and go and pay them to do it. Because the only reason you don't like doing that, and what I see is entrepreneurs, because they're so resentful doing all these items that they don't like doing, when they do get a bit of money, they're like, I want to spend this on me as a treat. And they go and blow the money on I deserve a break. I deserve a holiday. And now guess what? You can't afford to pay that person to take it away forever. So short-term gains for long-term growth and profit and freedom is always the number one piece of advice that I could give to any business owner, really.
I love the fact that you essentially learned some of that delegation early on. And I like how simply you describe how you can start to hand over some of those tasks, right? Creating that list of the things that you like, the things that you don't, and starting to pass them over. And for me, and for a lot of business owners that I've worked with, that has been hard to get to. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that the business owners have when it comes to delegating? Because as you say, like when you're talking about time is basically your most valuable resource, leveraging that time, the biggest thing that you can do is delegate. And yet most business owners really struggle with that. So you mentioned one of the objections is for a lot of business owners, they struggle with the idea of spending some money on it.
Yeah.
What else do you think stands in their way?
So money's the first one. And then the second one is the belief that someone can't do their job. Like, so people say, oh, but it's quicker for me to do it, or I might as well do it myself, or they wouldn't be able to do it, or I've tried it before. Whenever you haven't been able to delegate something, it's your fault, right? You haven't explained it well enough. And there's to the point where you can write an email, as I say, got a tricky customer, and I don't know, it's someone who wants a very unique request for a refund or whatever it might be. You can video yourself emailing them back to the degree where you've got your thoughts, your tone of voice in there and why, and you explain why you're writing certain things to them. And you say, this is how we need to come across. This is why I'm doing this or why I'm doing that. If you explain it in that much detail, that person will get it. And then it's up to you to then stick with them a little while until you're happy with how they're doing it. Not just do it once and then go, oh, they bloody missed a full stop on the email or whatever. That doesn't matter. It's up to you to stick with it and make sure that it works. And it's only your fault. It's only your responsibility. I see so many business owners saying, yeah, we tried outsource, but he was terrible. They were terrible. Well, they're not terrible. You just haven't done yes, in some cases, they might have terrible work ethic or whatever. But in most cases, they've done it wrong. And they've done it wrong because you haven't explained it correctly, right? So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is, a lot of business owners feel that it's their baby, so therefore I don't want people to do it. I promise you now, there is a 17-year-old kid managing a McDonald's somewhere, right, who could wipe the floor with managing your company, because they're dealing with drunks and hospitality and all this kind of stuff and all this, like running sweaty kitchen. Running your company would be a walk in the park for them. And people don't like to believe that, right? They don't. But I promise you they could. Like, there's a kid manager, 18 years old in McDonald's, who could massively help you like wipe the floor of your business, like literally. So just get out of your own way, like, and try it and persevere with it. It's life-changing.
Yeah, I love that. And in fact, you mentioned McDonald's. A previous guest on this podcast was Marianne Page, who famously was at McDonald's for, I think, nearly 30 years, helping set up their systems and processes and training, right? So that you can have people in your team that can do that. And I think that was, I love that, because I think that was my journey with my other software business, was starting to realize, actually, I can get people to do these incredibly complex things by capturing them. And I think I did do, as you say, like capture some of the videos, and that helped, but then found every time you go, oh, actually, you're right, we should do a step in between this and that and whatever. So we ended up coming out of videos and creating checklists, and hence why we ended up creating AirManual to document those processes, checklists, and embedding videos where needed. But it was interesting. That was definitely that starting point. that it got us over the hump of some of those activities of starting to just create some basic videos of some of those things that needed doing. And particularly for things like sales calls. And in fact, we still do, right? In our onboarding checklists, we have go watch this video to see an example of a demonstration call in progress or how it's done. But then at the same time, you have to give them the steps. And I think you're right that so many business owners think, oh, well, my business is so complex and it's so different to everyone else's. I couldn't possibly create processes that other people could follow. And I remember working with a Facebook ad agency owner who was basically working 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day because he had complex processes in his business that only he could do. And in less than 20 minutes, we got them documented. And you just go, okay.
Yeah, videos and checklists is a great way of videos and checklists combined. That's a game changer. I think a lot of it's similar to like goal setting and goal planning. I always say like we get what we plan for, and a lot of business owners set goals like, I want to get to 1 million this year. I want to get to 200 grand this year. It's great having goals. You get what you plan for. So if you've ever planned a barbecue, it's probably gone ahead and you got all the meat that you wanted and the stuff, right? If you planned a holiday, it's probably gone ahead to the T because you had the checklist and you go, right, atoll number, security, car hire, booking tickets, thingy, check-in thing. And you had all that checklist there. No one seems to plan how they're going to get to 1 million or how they're going to onboard someone or how they're going to measure success in one of their team members. And it's not hard. It is literally a checklist. It's a reverse engineered checklist of micro little to-dos that then remove overwhelm. And it's game changing because it's out there on paper. It's out there on a document. You never have to remember that checklist again. Yeah. And it's just a case of ticking through it. It's amazing.
Yeah, completely agree. In fact, makes me think of, I shared on Instagram this morning, actually, a video of my kids using a checklist, obviously in AirManual, to get their clothes and school bags ready for the week ahead. And so they were doing this yesterday on a Sunday. And they merrily got all their stuff ready. They needed reminding to carry on, but I didn't need to tell them what to do because they could just follow the checklist. They're age 7 and 9, right? And then we use the automation feature so that when they click complete at the end, it plays celebration on the Sonos. And so like they're like dancing around or whatever. And I think, as you say, it's like when you turn it into something as simple that someone else can follow, you can take a reasonably complex business and build up. But I want to come back to that point you made before around actually prioritizing the things that you don't enjoy doing to hand over is one of the most powerful things. Because I remember seeing a video on, I think it's on your Instagram channel, where you talk to people who say, oh yeah, I want to earn more money. And you say, why? And they initially talk about the rubbish that it doesn't really make them happy. But then when you get to the nub of, okay, why do you want to earn more money? It's so that they can do the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
And of course, essentially that's what you're talking about here is how do you let go of all the things that you don't enjoy doing in your business so that even though your normal work day makes you happy? Have you got perhaps an example out for yourself or other business owners that you've worked with where they've broken from that status quo of just doing the mix of what the business requires and as a result perhaps found more meaning or more happiness?
Yeah. So everyone, just forgetting business, everyone on the planet just wants to do more of the one thing that they love doing. Like they want to move towards doing more and more of one thing or a couple of things that are all aligned in the same kind of area that they value the most. And for some people that might be family, for some people that might be traveling, for some people that might be some kind of hobby or whatever it might be. And we all just want to do more of what we want to do. And values change and I might want to do more music, and then values change down the line. I might want to do more of something else. I might want to spend more time on my fitness, but ultimately we just want to do what we want to do. That's it. And that is our mission in life, to be more at one, doing more of those things that we wake up and love doing, right? That's love. That to me, that's like, I'm not religious, but that's heaven. Heaven is like love, right? Waking up every day where you just love what you're doing. So with that in mind, your goal is to slowly chip away and remove all the things that you don't like doing. And you might as well prioritize them in terms of the things that you hate most, right? Till you get to the point where there's going to be some things that you still have to do that you might not love, like shower, toilet, brush your teeth, right? Or there might be something that you have to do that you can't delegate. But I believe that like the best place you can be in is where you've delegated everything that you feel like I have to do that. The more delegatable it is, the better you're going to feel. And the more you start delegating, the better, right? So the example that I would give that I see a lot is people going into a job that their parents want them to go into. Most of my clients who I work with are doctors, lawyers, accountants, and they all hit about 80 to 120 grand a year. They can't earn any more money because they're so stressed. The responsibility at that level is ridiculous. The pressure at that level is ridiculous. And they would rather have less money and more time to do what they always wanted to do. I always wanted to do this. And a lot of them just end up taking night school or some out of hours education to figure out how they can get back into building a side hustle to do what they always wanted to do, or they start reverse engineering their life, and they're very resentful and very miserable. And the reason being is because they took advice and got pushed into something that wasn't naturally what they were enjoying or even liked, with the belief that one day that would pay off. And now they're getting into their late 30s, 40s, and it's not paying off. And now they're thinking, I don't have a plan, I'm stressed. My parents, they've got different values to me, because you start knowing yourself better when you get to that age, and you start realizing, wow, this isn't what me at all. And that's when people start having like midlife crisis, because it's like, I've lived someone else's life all these years. I want to do me. So they go and spend a ton of money on a Volkswagen Polo GTI or something, and start, or Lambo or whatever, and start acting erratic because they're trying to quickly get some fun back in their life. And that's sad. And it all stems from not doing what you want to do. So delegation, I know we've touched on delegation, but it's a really, it's a deep subject. It's a deep life enhancing process that you need to adopt and really get good at, because if you don't, you're going to be pushed around and disempowered in all sorts of areas of your life.
Yeah, agreed. Love it. To switch gears slightly, I want to talk a bit about some of the amazing, essentially, things that you've created. Your podcast, for example, Always Free, has had over 2 million downloads. You've got more than 140,000 subscribers on your YouTube and loads of followers and so on. For you, what do you think has driven that? What is it that either has really resonated with the audience, or that you feel like, what are the activities that you've done that have really generated those incredible results?
I feel like I just talk, it sounds a bit simple, but I feel like I just tell the truth. And when you speak in terms of like kind of non-arguable, universal kind of feelings and principles, I feel like it connects with people, and people just go, yeah, something resonates there. It feels like you're talking to me. And then you just give actionable steps that people can take that are very practical. You don't hide anything behind paywalls and all that kind of stuff. Just give people the advice that you feel will help them. And yeah, you'll have a fantastic time. Your friends will become clients, and community members will be there forever. And it's just, again, it's a really inspiring way to do business and live. So I feel like just being honest and transparent and truthful and vulnerable and opening up about my own situations has been a great way to connect with people, so that they trust me. And then I've been able to provide them value as well, so that they can go and make measurable, beneficial changes to their life.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I think it's clear in the content that you put out how focused you are on delivering that value and just saying it how it is and so on, which it's funny it seems odd to say that's pretty refreshing. That feels like that should be the bare minimum. and yet,
I know.
Particularly in the industry of kind of business advice and so on, there's a real mix out there. One of the other things that really stands out for me, though, is a couple of things. One is, I know that you have particular pieces of content, like I think you've got one video alone that's generated £2.4 million in sales for you. And so there's that on the one hand. And then at the other end of the scale, one of the things that really stands out is your consistency in getting stuff out regularly on social media. So help me understand and unpick that. How have you driven that kind of success, both having some standout stars that really work for you and also been able to be consistent? Because I think a lot of business owners struggle with that.
Yeah, I think what's helped me there is just being an engineer and being a trader and being an analyst that I just like trends, and I like looking at the back end. I look at analytics, and I really do delve in deep to what works and what doesn't work. And I also play a long game. So in everything, in my investing, in my trading, in my businesses, it's always a very long game play. So what usually happens is you tweak and tweak, and then all of a sudden you hit an exponential turning point where you benefit and reap the rewards of all of that kind of deferred income play, which now takes part in a very short period of time. But consistency, yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned from analytics is you need to post a lot. Like you need to post a lot, but you have to post valuable stuff as well. So from what I've found, people give up on it too quick. And when I say too quick, when you're posting on these social media channels, people don't even usually see you until 5 posts, right? So, and then you need about 10 people to just you need them to see your content about 10 times for them to just recognize you. And then you need them to see you about 20 times or 30 times to become aligned with what you're saying, right? When the social media platform starts doing its job and the algorithm takes off and all the rest of it, they start showing them more, and they start seeing you a bit more. But it's about 30 to 50 times that they've seen you that they become a fan or a really good fan. So what that means is you need to post about 250 times to get some raving fans, to get a raving fan. So that's a lot. Like, you have to post a lot. So when I see people go, oh, well, I posted for 6 weeks and didn't really get anything, that's not enough. It's really not enough. And then the next thing is you have to give like a lot of value. There's so much. People scroll. I heard the other day that the average person on TikTok scrolls the height of the Eiffel Tower a day. Wow. Which, that's astonishing, right? So somehow you've got to get them to stop on that Eiffel Tower scroll that they're on and want to watch your whole thing. So enough of the like fluff or regurgitated motivation quotes or whatever it might be, or you've got a lot of value inside of you. You've got something that you can offer where you've overcome something, or something that someone wished they knew, or someone wished they had the answer to. And all you've got to do is just talk to that person and give them everything. Don't hide anything. Like, that's what's worked for me anyway. Just give everything for free. Just splurt your heart out. Give it steps, diagrams, everything. They don't need you. Think about, how can I give them something where they just shouldn't need me after this? And I know it's uncomfortable for business owners to do, because it seems counterintuitive, but actually it has the reverse effect. It's like magic. Honestly, you give someone everything. The video you mentioned that we did a significant amount of revenue from, that video is me showing someone A to B. You don't need me. And at the end of the video, I say, you now don't need me. But if you do want to take it further, watch part 2. And in part 2, I just answer all the questions that came up in part 1. So part 2 is literally, it took 9 months to produce part 2, because all I was doing is writing questions from the first part on my board till I had enough questions. And then I made part 2 on all of those questions. So none of it was my idea. It was all just filling in the gaps. And guess what? Then people want to work with you even more because they trust you even more, and they want to get closer to you. They want to handhold you. They want to you're the person that can solve their problems. They'll spend more money with you if you do that. It's just magic how it happens, but it does.
Love that. And it's clear from the content that you put out, like on your YouTube channel, for example. I think the one that's currently featured on your channel, I think, is nearly 3 hours long in length.
Yeah.
And yet, I think it's probably the video you're referring to. It's got, I think, as a point of recording, nearly 2 million views. And as you say, it's just designed to give them absolutely everything. And I think that's really inspiring because, as you say, that's often counterintuitive. And I think most business owners hold back from doing that because they're worried that if I give everything away for free, what will people want to pay for? And I think you're right. It's counterintuitive, but oddly enough, people want that because ultimately they want the result, not necessarily just to be told the answer. And so, my
goal has always been to make my free stuff as good as everyone else's paid stuff. And I recently heard Alex Hormozy say that as well. For anyone who knows Alex Hormozy, he's a great entrepreneur, but that's been my philosophy for many years. It's like, if you go back and look at my first YouTube videos from 8 years ago, I was basically putting out better free stuff than what was available to pay for on the market. And if you can do that, you'll earn more money than that you can ever imagine. It's crazy.
Fantastic. Love it. And of course, massively recommend all of Jason's content to do go check it out. We'll make sure in the show notes, we've got the YouTube channel, Instagram, and Jason's website and so on. Any other resources that you'd recommend people check out, particularly to perhaps cover some of the areas or topics that we've talked about today?
Yeah, jasongraystone.com. But what I normally recommend is I run a podcast called Always Free, and I'd love to have you on there, Alexis. We can continue this discussion.
That'd be great.
And get your take. But I always say, if you go to Always Free podcast, just listen to episode 1. Start at episode 1 and listen from there onwards, because I started that podcast with a view to give you step-by-step actions in what I would recommend, in which order I would recommend you take them. And you'll get the most value if you listen to episode 1 and start there, rather than just picking some of the shiny object titles out of nowhere.
Cool, nice. I feel that there's a big binge going to come on for a lot of listeners. That's fantastic. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining me. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
Great. And for all of our listeners, if you're looking to free up your time, sort out the delegation so that you can work on the business, work on the things that you'd love to do rather than the stuff you hate, I've got, talking about giving away free guidance, I've got a masterclass that I ran. I've got a recording of it that you can have on how to free up 15 hours per week and remove the constant stress of running a business without slowing down growth. If you'd like that, you can find out more and access it at airmanual.co/webinar. But otherwise, thanks for joining me and Jason. Please do subscribe to this podcast. Do check out Always Free as well. And ultimately, we're looking to help you get more guidance on how you can scale your business without stress, do the stuff you love. And if you'd really like to help us out, then do please share this episode on social media and with your friends and so on. But otherwise, until next time, have fun.
Thanks very much.
Good day.